The New York Mets have made headlines with a whirlwind of moves over the past few days. First, they signed Jesse Winker to a one-year deal, followed by the signing of AJ Minter to a two-year deal with an opt-out clause. However, the true catalyst of this flurry of activity lies in a huge franchise decision, parting ways with Pete Alonso after contract talks have gone sour. But is this truly the end of the Alonso era, or is it a calculated gambit to pressure the star slugger into reconsidering his demands? Let's dive into the drama in Queens on a new episode of Mets Post. Let's get it. Before we get to where the Mets currently stand with Pete Alonso, we have to start at the very beginning to understand how the Mets and Alonso arrived at this point in the relationship. In 2023, under the tutelage of Billy Epler, the Mets offered Pete Alonso a 7-year, $158 million contract extension, which would have covered his final year under the club's control plus 6 more seasons. Unfortunately for both parties, Alonso rejected the offer and settled for making $20.5 million in his final arbitration season. I get it. He wanted to bet on himself because he was becoming the guy in Queens. But there's a difference between betting on yourself and being borderline greedy. Alonso finished that season with 46 home runs, which is phenomenal, 118 RBIs, which is also great, but a batting average of 217 and an OPS of 821. He followed that season with another down year, which gave the sense that the Mets slugger was starting to decline a bit. He struggled with consistency and finished the year with a batting average of 240, which was an uptick from the previous year, 34 home runs, and 88 RBIs. Plus, he had an OPS of 788. It was going to be a tough sell for Alonso to get big money after 2 tough years and the outlook of his best years being behind him. In the midst of this, he hired Scott Boras to represent him, which already indicated that Alonso was looking for big-time money. This makes sense since he has 226 home runs since his debut in 2019, which only rivals Aaron Judge. But home runs are only a part of the game. Judge is a much more complete hitter, which is why he landed a bigger payday. Now let's fast forward to this week. Pete Alonso has been fielding offers from several teams like the Blue Jays, Giants, and Mets, but none of them have yet to meet his demands. It was rumored that Alonso and the Mets agreed on the length of the contract, but there was a sizable gap when it came to money. Alonso pitched the offer he wanted to the Mets that included opt-outs, and the Mets then drew the line in the sand. The offseason is moving quickly now as next month pitchers and catchers will report, and just before you know it, spring training will be here. New York countered Alonso's offer with a straight 3-year deal that did not include any opt-outs. It's rumored that the deal is worth around $70 million. Now, what does this mean? This means that Alonso would have been making $23 million a year if he had accepted it. If you look at that offer in comparison to the extension that he was offered by Epler, he would have been making nearly $1 million more annually with Stern's latest offer. So are the Mets at fault for this? No. They offered Pete Alonso 2 big deals that would have put him right at market value. The issue with Pete is that he wants to blow the market away and make Prince Fielder money when he isn't that player and may never be. He just turned 30 years old and had back-to-back seasons that don't match the value that he's expecting. Once the reports came out that Alonso wanted more money and that there was a sizable gap between the money he was offered and the money he wanted, Andy Martino of SNY dropped the one bomb that would help nix this whole thing. He mentioned that the Mets checked in on Vlad Jr., who I mentioned as a trade candidate in a previous video. He later came out and said that the Mets are pivoting to Plan B, which is also known as life without Pete Alonso. The Mets brass fully expect Alonso to sign elsewhere at this point, and to be honest, I'm fine with it. Pete has been a great homegrown player, but he isn't David Wright. He's not Aaron Judge, and Steve Cohen knows it. But are the Mets truly moving on from Pete Alonso? No one knows for sure, but I truly believe that the only way we see Alonso back in Queens is on a 1-year deal. I can almost guarantee that the Mets want Vlad Jr. and have their eyes set on when he hits the open market. Vlad Jr. is only 25 years old and is a more complete hitter than Alonso. Vlad Jr. had a batting average of 323 last season and hit 30 home runs while driving in 108 runs. Signing Vlad Jr. or trading for him will give the Mets a big bat to grow with Juan Soto and Mark Vientos. It also future-proofs them from when Francisco Lindor retires. This is a huge insurance policy, and the only team that can truly handle the cost of it is the New York Mets. Truly because they have an owner that isn't afraid to spend money, although David Stearns makes it feel like he is at times, but I think that's more of a Stearns thing. The Mets could move Mark Vientos to first base this season and possibly sign a player like Alex Bregman to play third base. Or trust in the kids. Go with a platoon of Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, or Luis Angel Acuna. While it may set back their lineup for this season, if they can land Vlad Jr. next offseason, then this team will be a contender for years to come. It's a risky move, but it makes too much sense for the Mets to do. While many will be heartbroken once Pete Alonso signs elsewhere, which I still don't think he will, I still think he'll end up in Queens one way or another. We may have to just trust in the long-term vision of David Stearns and Steve Cohen. How do you feel about the Mets possibly moving on from Pete Alonso? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. And while you're here, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back next week for another episode of Mets Post. Let's go Mets.